Hello, everybody. Coming to you from the United States again today. I am one of your hosts, Scott.
And I'm Andy, the other host, coming to you from my studio in the United Kingdom. I've just realised I've got all my CDs on display in the background. So I keep forgetting we're on video as well. Yeah. Well, I'm just hoping there's no embarrassing ones on the wall.
Of all the things that I know of you, I don't think that's the most embarrassing thing, Andy. Welcome to the Tea Timbits podcast, global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. Another episode in our series on strategic planning and how to think about business growth from that perspective. Today, we are going to get into a conversation about sort of how to keep a finger on the pulse of the shifting trends in business, in the market, as you think about those plans and how to stay on top of where you need your business to go. We'll get into that in a minute, but Andy, what would you like to share with us today?
Well, I had a story that may have tied into to the topic of today, but I feel that may actually impede on our topic. So I'm going to go with another one, which is actually related to last week's conversation. So we're going to go with that one. But essentially because one of the things that we mentioned in the conversation that we were having was the element of having, if you are going to outsource, that you still have some structure in-house to sort of manage that. And I had a really relevant experience with one of the companies that I was working with, because they were very much lean organization, I think is the term they wanted to use. So basically they had in-house resources at the top, focused on particular areas, but the rest of everything was outsourced to sort of experts and agencies and stuff. But one of the issues that they had is they decided to change their marketing agency that they were working with to generate more leads, because they basically weren't getting any leads, and the sales team it was a couple of guys, and they weren't going out and meeting customers, and they weren't making phone calls. So, it wasn't ideal.
Better change the agency.
Yeah, so they got this agency. They trained them up, gave them the information to get some leads and so on, and that was great. And then the marketing team and the sales guys sat back and they were like, "Oh, great! All the leads and stuff are going to come in, and it'll be fine." And they did. And this was the problem for them.
Oh, really?
Then they didn't know what to do. They had no process in place in order to pick them up. Once the leads came in, they didn't know what to do with them. So they weren't putting them in the CRM. They weren't following up with them. They weren't contacting them in a consistent way. They weren't actually going out and meeting them. They weren't doing all of the other stuff. So it really highlighted all of the sort of the internal issues that they needed to put in place, and that they should have already had in place. Sure. But this is really important, is that if you are going to start working with an agency, if you are going to outsource something, especially in sales and marketing, which is, the growth and, foundation of your business, make sure you have a process in place to handle those leads and those opportunities when you actually get those leads coming in.
Well said. That's a very good point. That's good sound advice. I'm impressed that was such a challenging problem, though. That's a good work on behalf of that agency.
Well, that's the thing. It's a as people say, it's a positive problem to have, but at the time it really wasn't positive, because they were burning a lot of bridges in the way that they were handling a lot of these incoming opportunities.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. You don't follow up, and that's as bad as saying the wrong thing, and when you do follow up. Thank you for sharing. So we're going to talk about sort of keeping a finger on the pulse of the market and shifting business trends. What do you want people to take away from this conversation?
Well, for me, it's just important that people actually realize that this is an important task, and it should be part of your routine, because not doing it, I mean, you'll end up somewhere like Blockbuster Video. It's you miss that opportunity, right? And you've just got a load of empty warehouses and empty buildings all over the world. You go from being a world domination to completely irrelevant in a very short period of time, and that is purely down to self-indulgent arrogance. Is that they believed they knew the market better than their customers, but the customers were moving on.
I wonder if they did think they knew the market, or if they didn't bother to look
They just didn't care. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, which is even worse, of course.
Or there's just some hubris that like, no, it's not going to shift that. Like they just, instead of evaluating the market, I'm sure there's business students out there who already analyzed this. Did they just sit back and kind of think, we know what it's looked like before, and we're pretty comfortable that we know it's going to stay that way, as opposed to formally validating that assumption.
Yeah, maybe
that it is an assumption, and maybe we're getting into the topic already.
Yeah, but I think maybe we are, but it's just such an easy one to reference that anyone in the world can recognize, because people had Blockbuster videos everywhere, and then all of a sudden they were gone and they were replaced by streaming services and home delivery services like Amazon, even if people wanted the actual physical product.
And from where I sit, the big disruption right now is going to be AI. I'm having all kinds of conversations at the moment at this conference that I'm at, and there really is a split opinion on whether or not that's the hype is overdone. That I don't think anybody disagrees that it's going to transform things and impact the way we all live and work. What is, I think, in the debate is whether or not it's going to happen and catch us off guard. And because it's come along very quickly, and everybody's using it, and everybody's embracing it, but it doesn't seem to be truly disruptive. It is helpful, and it is adding efficiency, and it is adding productivity, but it's not. So far, I haven't heard of any stories of things fundamentally breaking down for a particular business or industry. I think that's coming. I think that will happen very soon. But I talk to people who think that what I think is ridiculous.
Interesting.
So that's one example of what the horizon may have in store, but that's not what we're here to discuss. It is, how do you keep a finger on that pulse? So what do you say about that, Andy?
Well, I think, just having a simple daily routine of, sort of checking industry posts, looking at what's going on in your particular business, your particular industry, what's happening in the wider, beyond the industry specific research that you're doing, but also looking what's happening in the wider world. So, for example, you may be working in logistics, you may be working in IT. You're going to have different levels of exposure to things like AI, like you were talking about, but also other trends and changes in the market. But those things are going to impact on consumer habits. They're going to impact on other things. So if you're in the logistics, that's going to impact on what you're doing, because people may be buying more or less. People may have different demand and expectations. And the same with IT. People will expect things to be more intuitive, perhaps, but also maybe sometimes people will want to just have traditional workflows that they can manage themselves without AI. And having that understanding of where the market's going, what the your customers and the wider market is looking at, is very important. And I think just doing that on a daily basis, just having a quick, staying abreast of the news, keeping an eye on these things. There are, of course, tools where you can do much deeper research and things. And I think maybe once a quarter to go and do that. But if you've been doing these things on a daily basis and everybody in your team is doing it, 10-15 minutes a day, it doesn't take too much, but that's all that's needed. But just to keep abreast of things, because you'll then be able to provide greater value to your customers who are not doing that task.
Agreed. I think to add some more specificity to that, as I was listening to you, keeping an eye on the news. I mean, we're not talking about the mainstream news here.
No, we're talking industry type. So stuff that's relevant for your industry.
Right. And so in my case, I have a small handful of podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis that talk about technology trends. And there are specific publications about technology, innovation, business that I also subscribe to for that specific reason. So I'm not just flipping to the technology article in the Economist. It is specific technology industry focused publications. And I'll say, you know what, they cost a premium. You're looking for something that is well informed, well written, stand up journalism. You're not looking for the latest meme or social media thread here.
Exactly.
I mean,
what Facebook's opinion is on things.
Or what the trending topic on X is right now. Exactly. And that's part of it, though. I mean, you need to know what the cultural trends are.
Yes.
And I guess for some businesses that's more important than for other businesses. But I think what we were thinking of by writing this topic down was the sort of business climate itself. And each business has to adapt to cultural trends, but we're talking about what it means to run, operate, facilitate a business. And part of that is go to market, but a lot of that is operations, internal technology, staffing expectations, resourcing, that kind of thing.
Do you see value in sort of training as well for like teams and so on, that there are maybe in-house conferences perhaps where you get speakers coming in, and I'm just trying to think about some additional ways that you can get really, really good information to the whole team, because there's going to be one or two people, and you're going to send out a newsletter, you'll maybe have a chat with a few people. It doesn't necessarily have the same impact as maybe having a proper, what they call it, a town hall meeting, where you get everybody together and present some stuff with some different speakers and things in-house in the company, and maybe doing that together with some other companies as well, turning it into a mini conference.
I love that. And you also sort of touched on that similarly in your points earlier about just sort of internal discussion, or making some time on a quarterly basis to dig deeper. I think at the very least, as you started to describe this point about training, I don't know that it's training, but it is definitely collaboration, socialization, sharing of perspectives, ideas, and insights and learning internally. And there are things that we practice on a weekly basis that are very tactical and project and client related, but we'll tease out some of those trends, or oh, you know what, I'm hearing that too, okay, my client said that also. Like, just hearing each other kind of exchange updates is part of that, I think. But then also on a less frequent basis, we'll carve out bigger chunks of time to do some reflection, to talk about and workshop some of those scenarios in more depth, in more detail, and even on an annual basis, do some risk assessment, and specifically ask the question, what do we deserve to be paying attention to that we haven't been, or we need to pay more attention to.
Because I'm involved in several different industries, as I know you are, even though you work within one particular one, but you're serving many different industries.
Serving many, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel sometimes that you can be a little bit overwhelmed by the information that you're looking at, because there is a lot of information out there, and if you know how to look at it, then you can end up with a lot of information, and end up in that, what's the term? I've heard it before. Analysis paralysis.
Yeah. I thought that's where you're going. I do think, and I actually think that that's one of the reasons why some people are not paying a closer attention to AI and shifting technologies right now, is because they're like, oh my God, like, I don't even know what that means. I'm going to let somebody else figure that out. You know, I'll face it when it's right in front of me. And I do think that that's a real valid, obstacle here. I think it's really important, though, not to let that slow you down from listening.
No.
And paying attention, because I think sometimes to filter that, you just have to keep listening. And if you keep hearing, because you won't hear, and my hypothesis here is that you won't hear everything constantly. You'll hear, if you keep listening, the message will shift, and some things will hit the repeat track, and some things will drop off. And then when you start to hear certain things consistently, time and again, that's what is something that you do need to genuinely pay attention to. And I suppose, though, the risk is, and I've seen this too, that you wait too long, that you hear that message, but you keep waiting for that one to change. You're like, ooh, I don't know what to do about that. Maybe I'll go ask the question over here, and maybe they'll tell me, oh, they said the same thing. I'm going to go keep looking for somebody to give me the answer that I want to hear.
Exactly. I mean, advice for our listeners would be then, start small, keep it simple. Maybe, have some little chats with people in your industry, and keep your ears open to what's going on. Subscribe to maybe 1 or 2 industry newsletters, and follow 1 or 2 thought leaders in your industry on social media or something. See what they're saying. What about Google Alerts? Do you think that that's something that people can use as well?
I've never used them. Some people do.
No, me neither.
That's not really a trend thing. You can't really set up a Google Alert to tell you about what you don't know. You can set up Google Alerts to monitor hits on your particular company, brand, or some other topic.
So it would end up being quite a lot of work, I guess.
Yeah, I think we skipped over a point, though, that I want to come back to that you made, which was socializing this and talking about it with other groups and external partners and things like that. I'm at a conference trade show right now for that very reason, and I think it doesn't have to be a big expense or travel involved necessarily. What's around you? What meetups can you find? What other colleagues can you chat with? And absolutely, there's meetups, there's groups, there's masterminds that involve your competitors who don't need to be labeled that way. They could be your contemporaries. They can be your friends and allies as well. And I was just at an event similar to that a month ago, and we all sort of sheepishly were dancing around the same question and the same challenges until somebody said it out loud, and we all kind of went, oh yeah, me too. And then it was like, oh. So then we could all kind of take a little bit of a sigh of relief, not let off the gas, not any of us trying to stop solving that challenge, but just knowing that, oh, it's not just me. I'm not doing something stupider than everybody else. Everybody else is facing the same issue and trying to solve it together. So
I think one of the ways, without going to conferences and stuff, to keep an eye on those sort of things as well and interact with people in that way is joining industry specific LinkedIn groups or Reddit groups and things like that. There's ways of seeing it online, which will give you a hint. I mean, of course, it's not always going to be good, but
I like your idea of like following other industry leaders, following industry influencers. I actually am not too hot on LinkedIn groups. Reddit, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
fair enough.
I think we covered a lot of ground there, Andy. Thank you.
We did. And this is just one reminder before we close out, though. This is not a one-time task. This is a sort of a daily task, but keep it short, keep it simple, and you'll find a way of adding value to your life and to your customers' lives as well by doing that.
There you go. I love it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in again. You can find all the back episodes. You can send us feedback. You can ask questions. You can share with your friends if you go to teaandtimbits.com. See you next time, Andy.
Thank you, Scott.